A gunman opened fire at an elementary school, killing 19 kids. This happened in the city of Uvalde in Texas, in the United States. And of course, he was killed by the law enforcement. These are kids all of 7 to 10 years old. It's quite a heartbreaking story. These were children who went to school like any other regular day, never to return home. So one can imagine how such an incident can absolutely shake the conscience of the nation. This is the world waking up to this tragedy. And of course, the 18-year-old deceased culprit, shockingly, had a handgun. He had an assault rifle. He had a semi-automatic rifle and also high-capacity magazines. So he had access to murderous weapons, an 18-year-old that we are talking about. He's also suspected to have shot his grandmother before the rampage. The local media reports that he may have been a student in the same high school in that area. So what has been the state response? Well, we'll play out all the statements for our viewers. US President has said that this is a terrible tragedy and it is imperative now to act against the gun lobby. Well, Mr. President, this is 200 such mass shootings this year. So the question we want to raise is, why has a developed nation failed to fix gun control laws? Why does US law even allow teenagers to access these assault weapons? Let's listen in first to the important statements that have come in from the top leadership of the United States and what the local police has to say.
As a nation, we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done? I am sick and tired of it. We have to act. And don't tell me we can't have an impact on this carnage. These kinds of mass shootings rarely happen anywhere else in the world. Why? Where in God's name is our backbone to have the courage to deal with it and stand up to the lobbies? It's time to turn this pain into action for every parent, for every citizen in this country. We have to make it clear to every elected official in this country, it's time to act.
Enough is enough. As a nation, we have to have the courage to take action and understand the nexus between what makes for reasonable and sensible public policy to ensure something like this never happens again.
What happened in Uvalde is a horrific tragedy that cannot be tolerated in the state of Texas. And there is swift action being taken by local law enforcement as well as the Texas Department of Public Safety. They obviously now know who the shooter was, and the shooter is no longer alive. Let me give you some details, and then I'll give you a summation about that. The shooter was Salvador Ramos, an 18-year-old male who resided in Uvalde. It's believed that he abandoned his vehicle and entered into the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde with a handgun, and he may have also had a rifle, but that is not yet confirmed according to my most recent report. He shot and killed horrifically, incomprehensibly, 14 students and killed a teacher. Mr. Ramos, the shooter, he himself is deceased.
Working on this active investigation. Once we're able to provide information to the families, we will do so. First and foremost, obviously, our priorities is to get information to our families and give them some information. So please bear with us in regards to that. Let me assure you, the intruder is deceased, and we are not actively looking for another individual or any other suspects in this case. We definitely ask you all to keep the families that are involved in your prayers.
Children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm sorry. I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough.
Well, let me introduce, joining us here on the program is Mr. Robinder Suchdev, who is ex-professor and expert on American culture. He's also co-founder of the US-India Political Action Committee, joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, Mr. Suchdev. Appreciate your joining us here on the broadcast. Very good evening. Perhaps it's morning for you there. I want to begin by asking you, I was a little startled with the kind of statements we heard from the US president as well as vice president, because, I imagine for the president to ask why, that's the question he should be answering. For the vice president to then say, enough is enough. Well, that is what we should be saying. And the leadership there should be answering that why, after so many instances, and we'll play that graphics for our viewers on the number of mass shootings that has taken place in the United States. It's absolutely unbelievable that this just continues, the whole cycle of violence. Mr. Sachdev.
Thank you so much for having me. Absolutely. You see, each time such incidents happen, what comes up is that our prayers and thoughts are with you. Why in God's name we cannot stop it? Something must be done. Lots of leaders make these statements. But honestly, nothing is going to change. American polity and politics and culture, because deeply rooted, this situation is in American culture of a certain kind, which will not allow guns to be banned. And forget guns. I mean, now, the debate is actually that you could allow pistols or revolvers, but not allow automatic weapons. I mean, that's the crazy kind of a debate. Teachers should be allowed to carry guns to protect themselves. Schools should conduct training programs for children under attack, et al. So all of this, I mean, it's been happening as you were giving the numbers and statistics that, the number of people killed by the gun culture is simply shocking in the United States. I'll just lay out 2 points. One is, the component of the killings which are happening due to white racism and related. That's one category. The other category, white racism, or could be any other, race. That's race, like in Buffalo or wherever. I mean, it's that. The other category is that when killings are being done, especially in schools, by children or youth, especially due to mental health and such issues. So these are two, separate strands wherein such incidents are happening in the US, will continue happening. And the primary reason is that guns in the US are supposedly it's a fundamental right of every American citizen. And it came around, when America was being founded, vast nation, people living in, vast areas all alone. So they needed or wanted guns to defend themselves, their homes. And then subsequent to that, another aspect of American culture which built up was that the government is the evil. And the government will someday or the other come down and take over me and my home. So I need to protect myself from the government. That's another strand in American culture, which leads to such situations. Now, bottom line is that all between this, having guns to protect my home, having guns to protect myself from the government, which will come and take over me, right? And, having guns for your hatred. The bottom line is that.
Right. I want to know, are you saying all of this boils down to or can be attributed to the fact that there is a crisis of confidence with the government itself? We know that President Biden's popularity ratings are plummeting. Are you saying that the citizens do not feel safe, and most of the time the reason they have these arms with themselves is to protect themselves? Is there that level of insecurity, especially with teenagers?
Sure. No, we are not. Teenagers is a separate category. We are talking about the first category which you're referring to. Absolutely, yes. There's a crisis of confidence with the government, not now. It's been going on for the last hundreds of years. That the government is the evil. And someday the government will come down and, take over my land and all. And I have to protect myself. Okay. So that's the one aspect which is there. Amongst the teenagers, it's the aspect of having easy access to guns. You can buy a gun at a fair, like a mela kind of a thing, right? No registration required, etc. You can buy a gun, buy your, the bullets or magazines and all, and then you are being bullied in the school. You're angry at your teacher. I mean, the teenage years, between the teenage and the youth, you get a gun, etc. Someone find, or your parents have a gun in their home. That's another category of people. Many parents have guns in their homes with the magazines and the bullets. The child steals it, goes to the school, boom, shoots it. So that's, I would say there are two different kinds of gun violence happening in the US. One is the white racism, plus the home defense, plus the folks, I mean, they believe in a big picture that the government one fine day will come and control them. Fiercely independent. I want to be independent. So that's that category, which is a separate adult category. The younger category is the ones with mental health and such issues, and who are enamored with the video games and all, etc., who find easy access to guns and take it as a toy and play out a virtual game.
That exists everywhere. There could be that section of people. There's also an issue of people being mentally disturbed, mentally unstable. But then the fact is, to have access to murderous weapons is not something that is reported with this kind of alarming regularity, the mass shootings that have happened. But let me go to the next question on why is it that a course correction is not happening? The problem is known to everyone. And I think the solution is also known, but nothing can be done. Is it because of the gun lobbies and the kind of money and muscle power that they have?
Absolutely fair and square and center, the gun lobby and the money. But one more thing combined with the money is the ideology. See, this fits into the ideology of the conservative section or the Republican supporters in the United States. So the gun lobby plays upon it as a matter of individual rights, as a matter of small government, right, with minimal interference in my personal affairs. And maybe as a hobby, I like to go hunting. I should have a gun. Why not? I mean, who's the government to tell me not to do it? So the gun lobby, absolutely square and center. But the point is, the gun lobby is a part of the ideology of the Republican segments of the society, which, kind of go along with it. So it's kind of bundled. So what you'll find is when you have a conversation in the US with people across the aisle, and remember, by the way, US is broadly divided between Democrats and Republicans half and half, right? Broadly, right? If you speak to anyone who's voted Republican, let's say, right, you will find absolutely their stance on abortion. That's another big issue, that, no abortions allowed, keep aside that, and gun, and something else, because for them it boils down to the fact of individual rights, and the government has no business to tell me what to do. Their solution is that, I mean, the evil lies not in me, the evil lies in the situations which bring about such incidents.
Mr. Sachdev, very quickly in conclusion, I want you to tell me, as somebody who's observed the American society very closely, where does the solution lie? We know all the compulsions, we know about the nexus that exists, given the money and the muscle power that certain lobbies have and the vested interest. How can a solution be worked out?
One, there is perhaps no solution. Second, the only solution, the bestest optimum solution which can be, is only one and only one, which is to introduce a curriculum in schools right from age 5 to age 15, which teaches, or in a fun way, a culture of live and let live. Kindness is cool. A compulsory curriculum in the children from age 5 to 15, because remember, child is the father of man. So when these children grow up, there will be lesser chances of these adults going towards extremism and picking up a gun. There will still be violence, there will still be all of these issues, but the only way to reduce this, and if you may remember Black Lives Matter, the other issue in America, for example, right? All of these social divides in America, there is only one way ahead. Why America? World over, I would say, a curriculum which in a fun way engrains, the philosophy of live and let live, compassion, kindness, coexistence, respect for the other. Because it's the programming in the child which translates into what the adult is. And one more advantage of this would be bullying. Bullying is a huge issue in America, and I would believe in every country, even in India, right? The more our children are exposed to, ideas, principles of kindness, coexistence, playfulness, being compassionate, etc., there'll be less bullying in the schools. And the less number of these adults will be prone to pick up the gun and kill the other. There will still be hatred, there will still be other forms of mental depression, and you tip over, that will keep on happening. But the only way to mitigate or reduce this is education, curriculum, compulsory curriculum, all schools across America. There is no other way.
Robinder Suchdev, I've taken note of the important points you made, and I think you're suggesting a two-pronged approach. Of course, the education system needs to fix certain things, but we also need a policy. Absolutely. We need government policy in terms of the fact that,
But
this
policy
is
in a logjam. Afrida, quick.
Yes.
Policy is in a logjam. No amount of policy will be able to come about in the US to change it. Another month, another 2 months, we'll be talking about a similar incident. And again, all prayers and thoughts. And Biden will be appealing again, why in God's name? Well, it's all God's doing.
All right. Points were very well made. Thank you so much for joining us, Robinder Suchdev, this evening.
Thank you, Afrida.
With your informed opinion on the subject.
Pleasure.